Either of you ever seen the movie Tusk?
Nope.
Nope.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm gonna talk about it. So it's about this movie. It's about this
The movie's
guy.
about a movie? That's crazy.
It's about this guy who's a podcaster, and he goes to Canada to interview this guy. And this guy, he gets to this guy's place, and it turns out he's killed himself. So he's like, "Oh man, I got no person to interview now." So he's taking a piss at a bar, and while he's looking at the wall of like just posters and stuff at the urinal, he sees this paper, and it's like, "I've had a really interesting life. Uh, blah blah blah. I run a hotel, and while you're here, in exchange for staying here, listen to my stories and do some chores." So this guy's like, "This guy sounds awesome. I'm gonna go interview this man for my podcast." So he goes to the place, and this guy's like, "Yeah, I knew Hemingway. We were on the boat at Normandy together, and like, oh yeah, I was stranded once, and I met this walrus, and we became friends until I got rescued." And he's like, "Wow, this is awesome. Like, this guy's amazing." He's got like photos and like paintings and artifacts all over his room and stuff. It's crazy. And he's offered him some tea, and this tea is the best tea that his name's Wally, the main character. The best tea Wally's ever tasted, and Wally is chugging it down, bro. It's crazy. And Wally starts to get a bit queasy and a bit oozy, and
I wonder why.
yeah, no idea. So then while he's like falling asleep while the man's telling him about his ventures, like he's just rambling on, so you know. Then while he's like, "What did you put in?" Then he just face plants on the floor and passes out. Then he's left his girlfriend
Damn,
and his what?
Go on.
He's left his girlfriend and his podcast partner at home. Just that'll be important later. So then Wally wakes up in a wheelchair. The man is wheelchair bound, by the way. The old man, the storyteller, he's completely wheelchair bound. So he wakes up in a wheelchair and he's like drooling because he's just been passed out sitting up, and he wakes up and he's slowly getting movement back in his body, and the old man's sitting there in his wheelchair, kind of in front of him, polishing a walrus tusk. And he's like, "What happened?" And the old man's like, "You got bitten by a spider, and you fell over, and I saw it, and I killed it, but I rushed you to the hospital, and something very unfortunate happened." And then Wally looks at his leg, and from just above his knee downwards, his left leg has been completely amputated. And it's been a very shitty job. Like, it's thick stitches, like skin's hanging off, like it's a very bad job done. And Wally's freaking out, and it's really not good. And the man, there's something off about him. There's something off about this man. Like, he's like, it's like he's trying to contain laughter. Like, he's trying not to laugh while Wally's having a nervous breakdown. He's like trying to, like, I need to call my family, and Wally's like, "The doctor, to prevent you from freaking out, removed all the phones in the building. Like, we're here alone." And Wally's like saying all these Wally's like freaking out, and the old man's like saying all these excuses, and he's basically trying not to laugh at Wally. He's trying to contain himself, and it's really messed up. And then he kind of leaves Wally with like a, you gotta just accept life. And he says, "I'm sorry for your loss." Then he like wheels away in his wheelchair, like on the verge of tears from laughter. So later that night, it cuts to them at a dinner table. Wally at one end and the old man at the other, and it's a very long table. And so they're sitting there, and Wally's just sitting there, just 1,000 miles away, while the old man's just talking to him. He's very kind of like, not posh, but like he's kind of experienced sounding, and he uses a lot of fancy words, and he's talking, and Wally just starts talking and interrupts the old man. He's like, "There wasn't a spider, was there?" And then the old man denies it at first. He's like, "No, I saw it. It was..." And Wally's like, "What did it look like?" And it was small. He just uses a lot of fancy words and stuff, and then the old man starts to laugh again. Then Wally starts to like yell at him like, you crazy old bitch, like why are you doing this to me?" And then the old man like goes stone cold face and stands up and walks over to him. And that was a crazy moment, man. Like, he just goes stone cold, all kind of demeanor gone. He stands up, walks up to Wally, and just slaps him in the face really hard. And Wally's just so like horrified and taken back because like that moment was like, man, this man really could just be up to anything. Like, you're thinking he's in a wheelchair, then he just gets up. It was crazy. But so then the old man gets slaps him, sits back down, and he starts to talk about how man is cruel, and his friend Mr. Tusk, who he met on that beach that one time, was the most purest soul ever. And he starts talking, and then he starts to explain to Wally that he's going to put him in a walrus suit, and no matter what, he has to act like a walrus, and if he doesn't, he's going to kill Wally in unimaginable ways. And there's nothing he can do about it to change it. And Wally's yelling for help now, and he's like just yelling and trying to get out of his chair, but he's not got a leg and he's tied down. And while he's yelling, the old man starts to yell as well and make these really weird noises and like kind of overpowers Wally in screaming. And we leave it there. Then it cuts to the girlfriend and the partner talking to each other, and it kind of sounds like they've been cheating on Wally, but they suspect Wally of cheating as well while he's been out doing his podcast stuff, so they think it kind of equals it out, or like something, I don't really know. So this is at night time. They're about to go to bed, and while they're doing that, it cuts to Wally in a room by himself in the wheelchair, and he sees a phone on the table, and he gets the phone and he calls his girlfriend, and his girlfriend doesn't hear it. She's in the other room, and it's in the bathroom, and you can see the bedroom from the bathroom. It's like kind of a double camera perspective, and you can see the phone ringing, and she misses it, and then he calls his podcast friend, and while he's calling his podcast friend goes into the bathroom to wash his face, and he sees Wally calling, and he decides to ignore it. And while he's leaving a voice message, the old man sees him, comes up behind him, and knocks his head, and no, knocks him to the ground, and he says life, and he like yells at him. He's really mad at him for stealing the phone and stuff, and he's like, life as you know it is done. From this moment on, you're mine. You're not escaping. There's no point trying to fight it. Like, your life is through. And then he knocks Wally unconscious, and so after that it cuts to the old man in this really big room filled with diagrams of sewing a man up and making him kind of walrus-like, and like diagrams of the anatomy of a walrus and the anatomy of man and how he's gonna transform him. But it's all kind of just pictures right now, and it's and then it cuts to the old man stitching. You don't see what he's stitching, you assume it's Wally, but it cuts to the old man stitching, and he's talking to Wally about how amazing and pure and goated walruses are. And then, when he's finished talking to Wally, he stands up and applauds himself, and it cuts to Wally on the table with his bicep sewed to his underarm. So he's kind of got that kind of walrus flipper of his forearm. And so he stands up, applauds himself, then it cuts, and then it cuts to 24 hours later. The girlfriend and the podcast friend check their phone, and they hear the voice messages that Wally left, and they are freaking out, bro. Like, they're so scared. And when Wally was leaving their voice messages, he told them about the old man's name, which I don't remember right now. He told them about the old man's name, where he was where he was roughly, and and that he cut off his leg, and they were the important things that they needed to remember. So they're like, we need to go get Wally. So they leave, and it cuts to the old man in this like zoo type enclosure that he has. We don't know where it is, but this zoo type enclosure. And while we're getting like pans, we just hear Wally making no understandable words, just kind of just that kind of thing. And then we get close-ups of what Wally looks like now, and it's indescribable. He's not a man. He's the only thing that you can tell that it's Wally is his face, and what it is basically just this big blubbery mess of human body parts sewn together to create this walrus-like figure. Like the flippers at the front are like 16 fingers sewn together on like two hands sewn together, attached to the body, and the back flippers are like stretched broken feet that have been squashed, and like well, he's got two massive tusks pushed into the front of his skull, coming down, which are revealed to be his tibias, his I'm pretty sure his forearm bones, which the old man carved into his tusks. So, and Wally's just like freaking out. He's moving around as a walrus because that's all he can do. He's like yelling, and he's like just making just grunting noises because that's all he can do. He can't speak anymore. And he's just crying, and he's making noise, and he's trying to get away, but the enclosure is it's like a stone kind of circle in the middle of water. And the only way to get off this thing is a bridge that the old man connects to it. So he's just sitting there, and the old man's talking to him, and he's calling him Mr. Tusk. He's not calling him Wally anymore. He's calling him Mr. Tusk, and he's like, "You look how beautiful you've become," and all this kind of stuff. And then what happens after that? Then we kind of just sat there, like he's just talking to Wally, Mr. Tusk now, and it's so horrifying, man. Like, and he's like yelling at Wally, like, walruses don't cry, stop crying, stop panicking and stuff, or I'm gonna hurt you and stuff. And he's just trying to contain himself, but he's in obvious pain, and he's just, yeah, he doesn't know what to do. Then we're sat there for a while. Then we cut to the girlfriend and the podcast man, and they're talking to this man, and he's like French or something, and he's obviously kind of lost his mind, but he's been hunting the old man for years, and he's gathered stuff, and he tells stories about what the old man has done in the past, and Wally is his 28th victim, or his 28th victim, and how no one has ever been found alive, but everyone's been found the same way. They've been found in rivers all around the world. One leg, multiple teeth there, just body parts screwed and dysmorphed and stuff. And what everyone has had in common is their skull has been modified to have two big holes at the top of their mouth. And no one knows what that means because they don't know what he's doing because no one's caught him. So they're talking to this man, and he's crazy, but he knows what he's on about. So they take this man to a gas station that they know the friend went to before going to the old man's house, and they're talking to the gas station ladies, and they give him where Wally was going because Wally was on the phone, and they overheard him talking about where he was going because he was talking to the old man. So they're piecing it together, and so they do that, and then it cuts back to Wally, and the old man's talking to him, and Wally's got this chain around his quote unquote tail, and the old man's like, well, Now you look like a walrus, now you need to get the instincts of a walrus. And he drops a big stone into the water below and it drags Wally into the water. And Wally's like freaking out, he's crying, and he's just yelling at him like, swim, swim, Mr. Tusk, swim. And he's like yelling and having fun and like clapping and whatnot. And he's managing for a while. He's not doing the kind of worm kind of movement that walruses do to swim. He's kind of just flapping his hand flippers and kind of just trying to keep his head above. But he eventually starts to sink. And when he gets to the bottom, he sees like 16 other, or maybe not 16, maybe like 8, like other obviously made guys who had drowned there, who looked exactly like him, like dysmorphed walrus men, and like they're horrifying because they're decomposing in there, and the water's all murky, and there's like you can see the skull, like I don't know, there's like one guy's eye like floating out of his skull, like it's horrifying, man. So Wally's sitting down and he's freaking out, and he gets dragged back up by the man. Then it cuts to them, the boyfriend and the podcaster guy, talking to the man, and they found the man's location. They found the old man's location, and they're gearing up. The French guy's got a shotgun, and he's given the other two a pistol each just to defend themselves. And they're going into the man's estate. It's like a big kind of mansion in the middle of nowhere. So then it cuts back to the old man and Wallace. And what the old man is doing, he's naked and he's walking in the water, and he's got Wally by the flippers, and he's kind of just walking backwards, kind of holding Wally, looking at him and talking to him. And he's being super nice, and he's talking about how he actually killed the walrus, killed the original Mr. Tusk on the island when he was lost at sea, and he's had guilt about that ever since. And from then, he teaches Wally, Mr. Tusk, about how he has to be ready for men, and he has to be ready for how cruel they are. So after that, he grabs Wally's head and he shoves it under the water, and he attempts to drown him. Then he drags him back up to his pillar, leaves, comes back with a sewn together, like not fitting walrus suit that the old man has made. It's not fitted to him, but it's that kind of thing. And then he says to Wally, he's like, you have two options. You can either fight and kill me and win survival, and go full walrus and get your survival instincts and become the walrus, or I will kill you. So then in the background, the old man's had like a video playing the whole time of like a beach and seagulls. And when this scene happens, like there's just like documentary video of like walruses fighting, like kind of clashing. You know how walruses fight? They're kind of just like hitting each other with their bodies and whatnot. Then so they're doing that, and it's so messed up, man. Like the whole scene, because it's like just the sight of it, bro. It's quite a thing to watch. But so we do that. And then they're obviously making a lot of noise. Wally's like screaming, yelling, doing his grunts in pain and anger and disgust and all of that. And they're running up to the estate, and they can start to hear Wally like crying, yelling and stuff. And then like the two people, So they run up there. They're running in, and they come up to the place where Wally has been kept. It's like in a secret compartment under the man's like stairs or something, I think it was. And they come in on. Then it cuts to, before they get in. Sorry, it cuts to Wally fighting the man, and he overpowers the man somehow by the power of Wally, because he's going full walrus, which is what the man wants. And then the man says to him, so your survival instincts have kicked in. But then he stands up and rips out of the baggy walrus suit made of man skin that he has on. And he's revealed to be completely naked. And he's like, well, so have my survival instincts have kicked in. And he pulls out a gun and he points it at old mate's head, at Wally's head. And then Wally looks at his foot, stabs his tusk into his foot, knocks the man onto his back, and just proceeds to spear his chest with his tusks just over and over. So looking down at him, just like ramming his tusks into his chest over and over. And he's just yelling, and he's being covered in blood. And the old man's just like, my perfect Mr. Tusk, you've really become what I wanted you to. Then he dies. And while that's happening, the girlfriend and the man have come into the enclosure, and they don't know what they're looking at first, but they recognize Wally's face, because, you know, that's all that's really recognizable. And Wally looks at them while they're looking at him, and they're just horrified. Like, imagine seeing me in that situation. You've just rocked up and seen me in that situation. And the French guy comes in after. Like, when Wally sees them, he's like doing his grunts, and he's covered in blood, and he's just yelling at them. And he's animalistic, man. His as the old man said, his survival instincts have kicked in. He's just feral. And the Frenchman comes in with a horror look on his face, and he just points the shotgun at Wally's head, and then it cuts to 1 year later. And it cuts to the girlfriend and the podcast friend driving up to a zoo, which has obviously been shut for a while. And they go to the zoo, and the girlfriend has a paper kind of newspaper. They go to the zoo, and they're looking over a balcony with a little enclosure, and with a little pool and a hut. And they're talking to Wally. They're like, "Hi Wally, it's us, your friends. We're here to see you." And they're so distraught. And they've been coming for 1 year, and nothing has changed. Then he doesn't come out at first, and they throw a fish, which was wrapped up in the newspaper, down to his enclosure. And he comes out, walrusing, blubbering about, just a shell of his former self. And he's just eating the fish raw, he's doing all that. And then the girl's getting really upset, and she just yells at him. She's like, "Wally, I'm so sorry this has happened to you." And she's like, there's nothing she can say, because he's gone full walrus. He's just, he is no longer Wally. Wally is Mr. Tusk. And she like yells at him like, I love you and I always will." Then he looks up with a minor glint of human in his eye, like he wants them to help him, but he's too far gone, and they walk away. Then he looks down at his fish, all sad and with acceptance in his eyes. Then he waddles back into his enclosure, and the movie ends.
Didn't realize I was going to watch a movie through Nick's voice.
Yeah, what? What
I really wanted to do that swamp thing, but now we can't. Too late.
Oh, I've been waiting to go, man.
That story really sucked any energy I had.
What? I'm feeling
go.
what? I'm feeling so rejuvenated. I'm feeling good.
So tired. My eyes are closing. So tired, man.
What? Is that a thing? No.
Crazy.
You guys should. Oh, you're not going to, because I just told you.
Why did you just spout out the entire like movie runtime? Like,
Yeah, what is wrong with you?
why did you just like from start to finish you just explain the entire plot, like the entire thing that happened, like
Play by play, scene by scene.
Oh, I wanted to talk about it. You guys didn't ever stop me or say anything, so I just kept going. I assumed if you didn't want me to, you would have said something.
I don't even remember anything you said. It's just you were just it was all just jargon to me. It's just
So you didn't take any of that in,
no, I
Carl?
didn't. All I took in was so this is Warriors, right? Or he's acting like a Warriors, and like that's all I got out of it.
Okay, well, Carl, did you take anything in?
Sure, I'm going to bed.
Oh man,
Good night.
good night. Whatever, man. I wanted to talk about it if I thought they wanted me to stop, I would have, but they just shut up. So, night.